All right. Good morning again, everyone. Today, we're going to go through session 6 of the covidClassifyR Shiny App workshop, showing you how to download your QC report and process data. The recap of the previous sessions and their materials are on this slide, which you can click and navigate to if you need to. So in this session, we'll cover how to download your process data, and how to download and interpret your QC report. And there is the link to the Shiny app. So first of all, downloading your data. So in the previous session, we got up to the point of getting to our sample results and sort of interacting with the different plots and the different QC metrics, if you'd like. And again, I've put the example output data there in case you need the link. So first of all, you would navigate to the download tab, and it's quite simple. I mean, you've got 3 buttons for the different data sets that you can download. So the first one is the processed MFI and RAU data. So you can download it by simply clicking download MFI RAU data button, and it will save the file in the same way that I mentioned before. It'll use your experiment name _date and then _MFI RAU results. So everything will sort of be labeled as expected. So I hope you can see that here. In this tutorial example, the experiment name was called tutorial example, and then _the date of analysis, and then _MFI RAU. And it saves out a CSV file, which you can open in your program of choice. You can open it in Excel or Prism or wherever you prefer. And it's essentially the same as the interactive table that we just viewed in the previous session in the sample results tab. So you have your samples in the first column, and then for each antigen you have the MFI values and the converted relative antibody unit or dilution values. And you have that for every antigen, and you now have a file with all of the process data. So quite simple, and then you can do what you need to do with this data. The nice thing is it will always export in the same way. So if you want to merge data from different plates, you would literally just append the rows, assuming that your antigens are labeled correctly. So this is where it becomes really useful to keep consistent antigen naming, and then you can download all of the process data for your different plates, and you can merge them together. The next feature for download is the standard curve data, and this is in case we've had some discussions here with the lab team in Melbourne that sometimes it may be useful to compare your standard curves across multiple plate runs. So let's go back to the example of running a bunch of plates for a particular cohort study, or the cross-sectional, let's call it the ABC study, which we've called it in previous sessions. For this ABC study, we're running 20 plates. And so potentially we'd want to check that the standard curve data looks relatively consistent across all of the plates. So we might want to actually plot all of our standard curves from each plate just to see how it looks. And so you also have the ability of downloading the standard curve, and going back to our file naming, it's the same as before. So we have the experiment name or tutorial example, analysis date, and in this case, standard curve. So for every experiment or analysis that you run, it will be labeled the same way with your experiment name and date. And again, this is a CSV file. And in the case of the standard curves, we obviously don't have the relative antibody units because we use the standard curve to calculate that. And so for this case, you only have the antigen specific MFI values for each standard. And so this is sort of the unprocessed data. And finally, the last button option is this quality control report. And this includes all of the plots that we just looked at in the previous session. All of the different interactive plots and QC plots are included in this quality control report. So you have the standard curves, the model results, the bead counts, and the blank samples. And remember, we talked before about that experiment info. So here you will have the information that you entered in the import tab. So the experiment name, which also appears here, and then an analysis date. So this will always change depending on what you put in the import data tab. And then, I will add the feature we discussed to be able to also include information about the experiment or plate run date and time, so that you have a record of everything that's related to this particular 96 well plate run. One thing to note is that this QC report prints out as an HTML file, and it's best viewed on a computer browser. I've been exploring the possibility of maybe downloading it as a PDF. So I'll let you know if that becomes a feature, because I think that might be helpful as well. It just removes interactivity of some of the plots, but potentially it's a better option than having the interactivity. So stay tuned for that. And I think this section's quite quick because that's really all that it is. It is hopefully simple, but I wanted to just demonstrate and just show you what the QC report looks like for when you look at it yourself. So this is where, if you opened up the HTML in your browser, you could click the different tabs for the model results, the bead counts, the blank samples, and then the experiment info. And here you have the notes, the raw data file name, plate layout file name. Up here, we have the experiment name and the analysis date. And so I think what we'll include as well here is sort of plate run date, plate run time, so that you have all of the information in one place. Now you notice that this was clickable. So these tabs were interactive. That's why it's an HTML file. But I've been exploring the option of just having it be a static document that you just scroll. Instead of kind of interacting with the tabs, you just scroll down. So yeah, I'd be keen to know your thoughts if that's something that you would prefer, or I'll just probably make both options available, but happy for your thoughts on that. And that's it for that. So if you do have suggestions about that, we can chat about it in just a second. I did want to kind of assign, and again, I shouldn't call it homework because we're not in school, but things that you might want to do before the next session if you have time. I know that we're all very busy, but hopefully you're excited and at least wanting to explore the app a bit. So if you have time, you can download the example raw data if you haven't already. And if you haven't already, you can give it a go to import the raw data and the plate layout and just go through the QC section and all of the different plots. And for the next session, I'd like, if you can, for you to download the example output data. And I've included the link here. And there's also a link in the tutorial on the app website. So either of those will work. And that's what we're going to use to compare our data or our processing to what the output should look like. And then if you do have time and you're super keen or are really wanting to try it out, you can try changing the default experiment info, the date, and the notes, and download the process data and just have a look at how it changes. So that's all for this session. The next session will be a bit theoretical, as we're going to go through the classification algorithm next week and hopefully give you just an understanding of what's happening in the background of the application. So just the acknowledgements for this workshop and the development of the application, my contact details, and all of the resources that you will need for this session. And we'll open it up for questions from all of you.